Howdy, folkses. Plenty of YouTubers do these top, insert whatever number you want here, list type videos. Heck, some channels make that their whole gimmick. So I'm going to throw my hat in and do one. If you like the idea, tell me in the comments what list you'd like me to do next. Or, if you're like Mr. Miles, complain how this is not a TOS review. So, this is Vile Mike's top 5 TV shows that deserve a reboot. Number 5. Reboot. The first totally computer-generated TV show on TV. And I think we take for granted how far that technology actually has come. Mainframe's Reboot was a solid first step. It has interesting characters, good character development, and the game's gimmick allowed it to make plenty of commentary on nerd culture. I know we kinda got a recent reboot of Reboot already, but that rebooted reboot got the boot, so let's really reboot the original Reboot. We can use it to explore cell phone culture, social networks, scammers, fake news, deep fakes, and online gaming from the point of view of inside the computer. Besides, Megabyte was one hell of a villain and probably one of the best ever, and who would not want to see him make a triumphant return? Number 4. Lost. Lost. It had such a promising start, full of mystery and questions. The problem is, the answers were barely satisfying and it got overly complex just to keep that mystery alive. I think a well-planned out version would be great. One that always teases the next mystery, instead of just finding ways of hiding the old one. If I were to do it, I would make the island more of a place where magic does exist in some form, and make that more explicit. And then have the whole Dharma thing being how science tries and fails to explain it while studying it. You could use that mechanic to explore scientific and religious situations through a modern lens, but show that while one might be right does not mean the other's wrong. Just because you can disprove it's the wind does not mean it was a 50-foot smoke monster that makes sounds like a T-Rex. I would also ditch the Flash Sideways stuff. Number 3. Sliders. Sliders was the kind of show that did what science fiction does best. Using tropes and cliches to tell complex ideas about contemporary moral and social issues under a great premise. The what if. As the opening suggests, we could explore the ramifications of a world where Russia controlled the US, or a world where you just so happen to be famous, or a world where dinosaurs were still alive, but not show how these changes affect a country or the world on a large scale, but how they affect a small scale, how they affect a small group of people, maybe a town or even a city. Things like that. It was a great show until they decided to complicate things with stuff like a prime Earth or long-lost sibling or alien-like warmongers with a taste for eyes. Sliders was a great what-if show, and its ideas could be used again. The what-if is a powerful idea and could be used to explore many social issues found today, or even historical events. Number 2. Andromeda. Touted as a show by Gene Roddenberry, it was developed after his death and starred Kevin Sorbo of Hercules fame. The premise was a decent one. What if something like Star Trek's Federation had fallen, and how the different governments would react? But one very powerful ship survived unscathed, and how they make their way and maybe even restore the Federation. I originally liked this show, at least the first couple of seasons. But somewhere around the 3rd season, it became less about the crew and more about the captain, eventually turning Kevin Sorbo's character into Space Jesus. I mean, they literally have him born of a normal human mother, but is half some quasi-divine, super-evolved alien that just so happens to look like a human, and he's not just the last hope of humanity, but the savior of the entire Andromeda universe. Yeah, shit got weird. But that doesn't mean the premise is still bad. But I think it deserves to be revisited, and could tell some interesting stories about how great civilizations can and do fall, and how that impacts the common person. Plus, it had some really interesting ship designs. Number 1. Seaquest DSV. The original Seaquest was the disaster behind the scenes, with disagreements between the cast, crew, and producers. It didn't help that each season was being pulled into a different direction. The first season focused on ecology themes, the second one was more about sci-fi themes akin to Star Trek Under the Water, and the third was more about war and political intrigue. But I feel in this day and age we can use a show like this to do the things the original failed to do, and combined the elements of all 3 seasons. With things like climate change, political incompetence, government corruption, science denialism, a show that can explore things like that in a positive way may just be what we need, showing that politics is needed to combat climate change, that oil will still be needed even if it's not used for energy production, that green technologies can be economically viable but are not some quick and easy fix. Stuff like that. Alright, that's my top 5 shows that I think deserve a reboot. Later all.